Good morning. Welcome to the virtual home of the Calgary Unitarians. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your search for faith or search for meaning, welcome. If you are visiting for the first time or the first time in a long time, know that we are grateful to have you with us. We come together in beloved community to grow in wisdom, welcome and deepen relationships, and to act for a just and sustainable world. My name is Jane Evern, and I use the pronouns she and her, and I have the privilege of serving on your board of trustees. Please join us after the service for a virtual coffee hour, where we will meet in small breakout rooms and get a chance to socialize. This congregation is special to me because it offers a non-dogmatic approach to spirituality and for the warmth of the congregation. Before I begin our land acknowledgement, let me explain that a land acknowledgement is a way to recognize that we are coexisting in this land with the Native peoples, and that we should acknowledge that this is their traditional land. But at the same time, we are all guests to this land. Wherever you are located now, please acknowledge the traditional lands on which you live. For those of us in Calgary, we acknowledge that this meeting takes place on the traditional territories of the people of the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wellesley First Nation of the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We acknowledge that we are all treaty people. And now to Deborah for the chalice lighting.
We gather in this time of uncertainty, full of unknowns, as angst closes in upon us. We light our chalice with a flame that draws us together. With this flame, we cut through the darkness of isolation and are warmed by the fires of our interconnection. For this moment, this radical moment, we find a certainty within the noble bonds of love and community. May its light illuminate our longing to belong and this community's response of welcome. With these words, I light our chalice. As a spiritual practice, I begin each day with gratitude. Some days are easier than others. Some days that I have a roof over my head is the most I can name. And then that recognition that so many others do not have a roof follows quickly, and it moves me into even deeper gratitude. Always, though, Sunday mornings fill me with abundant gratitude, for I know I am part of a community that will gather and welcome me. These days of gathering in our virtual sanctuary magnifies my gratitude for the many days that we are alone and isolated, and then have this opportunity. I'm grateful for the many people who make this possible. Our AV team this morning, Jim and Christopher, our coffee host, Wendy, our board members, who in addition to all of the fiduciary and organizational tasks they do, will be with us, expressing the welcome on Sunday. And they invite you into a community conversation at 12:15, following coffee for an update and for your questions. I appreciate the worship arts team who work with me to prepare our Sunday gatherings and always have at least one participating. This morning, thank you, Lara. My heart is filled with the music offerings. Today, Jane Perry is with us via video, as is our special guest musician, Tom Mahadi. Wasn't that prelude amazing? Then, what I am especially grateful for is each of your presence here today. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilled a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to the possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. So welcome home and welcome to this worship service. Let us begin by singing our hopes for this community through the song Open the Doors, written by BC artist Joyce Poley. Please join in singing along.
Open the door, step right inside. Come into this place where love and hope will abide. Reach out your hand, I'll welcome you in. It's so good to be together again. Start out the day wearing a grin. Joyful faces make the people want to come in. Open your hearts to show that you care, and your little light will shine everywhere. When you're in pain, sorrow, or doubt, let the love come in to help the hurting get out. Open your arms to show how you feel, and we'll build a sense of love that is real. Open the door, step right inside. Come into this place where love and hope will abide. Reach out your hand, I'll welcome you in. It's so good to be together again.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all of you on this lovely fall day in October. Today, we're talking about longing for belonging and connection. And as I was looking at stories, I came across one of this woman when she was a little girl, and she was sitting in a boat with her dad, and it was this hot August day, and there was no trees for miles, and they're sitting in the boat. And she says, "Suddenly, I hear a buzzing close to my ear and a frantic, desperate humming coming from the right side of my head. I bolted up straight and stared at Dad. He pointed towards me with his chin. 'Don't move, and he'll not bother you.' And he kept rowing. And I thought to myself, what is he talking about? I looked around me, and then I saw it, a bee on my shoulder. Actually, to be accurate, a yellow jacket, bright black and yellow bands on their bodies, and I lived in terror of bees and wasps and hornets. And it was more than fear, it was a pathological terror that I could not explain. And my eyes must have looked like saucers, and I hissed at Dad to do something. And he just rode and shook his head. He's tired. It's a hot day, and all living creatures need rest. He's most probably been flying up the lake and needs to give himself a break. This is a pretty big park. Once he's rested enough, he'll keep going. Was I hearing correctly? Did my ears betray me, or my father was telling me to just let a large yellow jacket sit on my shoulder? The terror gripped me like a cold hand over my heart, and I turned my head slowly to the right and squinted a peek, and there he sat. In all his living yellow and black glory, wings folded neatly against his body, and I watched him, how perfectly formed he seemed. Somehow my curiosity overpowered my fear, and I relaxed. And no sooner had I done that than he began fluttering, testing his wings, and flew off. I was able to track his flight for a few moments, and sure enough, he crossed the water and headed to the woods, and I sat back and looked at Dad, and he said, "I told you," and we rode away. And the little girl, now all grown up, says, "More than 30 years have passed since that day, but the memory of that moment of connection, has taken root in my heart. And in the ensuing years, I thought long and hard about that tired little bee, and I realized for the first time in my life, I felt connected to something larger than myself, and that he was part of the reason. I came to believe he was sent to teach me not to fear, but that we're all one and all part of the same design." And when I read that story about the tired little bee, I thought about my own experience with spiders. And some of you might be going, ugh, spiders. And for the longest time, if I saw a spider in my house, I would be like, "Kill the spider," or run away and tell somebody else to kill the spider. And then eventually I felt bad about killing spiders, so someone would come and gently take it up and put it outside. But a few weeks ago, I was in my bathroom hanging out, and I saw a spider. And I was like, I need to get out of here. But I looked at that spider, and the spider looked at me, and I thought to myself, what is the spider doing in here? What does the spider want? And I realized the spider was probably thirsty. So I took a little cotton ball, and I wet it, and I put it next to the spider. And I came back in a couple hours, and lo and behold, the little spider was on top of that cotton ball having a drink. And since then, we've had 3 spiders, and we've named them all Spidey, and it's been a different one. Every few weeks they come, we give them a drink, they go away, and we look them up. If they're poisonous, yep, they go outside. But if they're not poisonous, we keep them, because in my research I found that spiders will actually fight off other more dangerous spiders coming in your house, and they'll eat any bugs that come in, and they're really helpful. And so just like the story of the tired bee, where instead of being afraid and maybe getting stung, we thought, what is that bee doing there? And they're just having a rest, just taking a break. And the spider in my bathroom is just taking a drink. And so now I felt this feeling of connection to something other than myself. And so as many of us are in our homes, and we might not have as many people to talk to, just remember we're connected to all living things. And so maybe our pets, maybe the crazy squirrel in your backyard, or maybe the spider in your bathroom. And now on to Laura for our centering time.
I am so not a spider person. Blah. Okay, so I will now share our centering words, and then we will have a moment of silence. Promises We Make by Gretchen Haley. For all the promises we make, we never promise that your heart will not break, that your heart could be brave, bold, bursting open, and be saved from the ache that sweeps over all of life. We can only hope to bolster that bravery, hope to quiet that ache, hope to be a community that listens your story into being, becoming, whispering, it's not the end, even now. The day breaks for all of us. So let us gather, friends, with our restlessness, our release, our risk, grieving the pain, praising the good, giving thanks, that we dare still wade into the waters of love and longing, that we keep moving and laughing, sighing and singing, holding the silence for this time.
Isn't that just amazing? A duet by one person. When we gather together on Sunday mornings, we take time to acknowledge the joys and concerns in our own lives and in the world beyond us. We take time to recognize these places in the human experience that we both share and that we can offer comfort and magnify each other's joys. We light a candle, a global candle today, and I want to light it for two purposes. One is that we are in the midst of Sukkot, the Jewish celebration of harvest. And we focused last month on the Jewish tradition and recognize that Sukkot and harvest is something that is celebrated in all cultures. I also wanted to recognize the Green Party's new leader, a woman, a Black woman. I want to acknowledge this in part because it is a celebration for the first time in Canadian history that such a person was elected to such an office. But I want to light the candle more broadly for leadership and for those who are in leadership in this world, that they might be guided by values and ethics that work for the common good, that sustain the planet and care for each other. For all of this, I light our global candle. There are concerns in our community, as there are in each of our lives. Let us take time to hold in our hearts all those who are struggling at this time, knowing that all of us are in some ways. It has become a universal thing, this struggle, this loneliness and isolation, the anxiety that it brings forth. Let us know that in community and by reaching out to each other, we can soothe each other's pain. We can ease the hardships that others face. There are concerns in our community for people who are challenged with health issues these days, with financial issues, and more. I invite you to take just a moment as I light this candle to hold all of those that you know are experiencing any kind of hardship, to send them energy of care and concern, and to direct some to yourself as well. A moment for a candle of care. And as is the human experience, there are also joys and celebrations and milestones in our community and beyond. It is such a joy to have these continued warm, sunny days, though I must say it probably means that many are out enjoying it rather than here with us this morning. Today, I want to acknowledge and recognize the many October birthdays. If your birthday is in October, know that greetings are being sent to you. There are joys and celebrations abound. The harvest, the gardens rich with food and bounty. But one of the greatest bounties that we have are welcoming new folks in our midst. For those of you who are visiting us for the first time, I extend a special welcome to you. And one of the surprising joys that this COVID time and our virtual world has offered is what we have been calling members' moments, a chance to get to know each other more personally. In reflecting with the membership team and knowing that we can hardly do a new member recognition ceremony, we thought about inviting new members to offer the members' moment. Please note, for those of you who are considering membership, it is not a requirement to do this, but only an opportunity. And so I am delighted this morning to light the candle for all of the visitors, the guests among us, the October birthdays, all the joys in our hearts. And I would ask that you hold all of those in your heart as I light the candle. and it is my pleasure to introduce our newest member, Daria.
Hello, my name is Daria Skibbington Roffel, and I live in Airdrie with my husband and our 4 cats. My parents and brother are from England, so I am the first person in my family to ever be born on Canadian soil. My parents were adverse to organized religion, so we never went to church like everyone else we knew, so there was never that feeling of belonging to a church in my life. I finally found my faith path in 1991, which is modern Druidry. It's a form of neo-paganism with a Celtic focus and a focus on seeking truth against the world. While Druidry is my faith path, I have never liked limiting myself to only one way of thinking to the exclusion of others. And in the mid-90s, I attended some outside events at the Calgary Unitarian Church, and I picked up pamphlets here and there. And when I finally got onto the internet in 97, I learned more, and I liked what I saw. I found that the 7 principles really resonated with me, particularly the search for truth and meaning and the inherent worth of every single person. I thought that was wonderful. And I joined the Church of the Larger Fellowship in 2007, attending online services, which was okay for me. In 2011, while I was still working in Calgary, I did get involved with Calgary Unitarians a little bit, but could not commit due to a lot of family things going on at the time. When the pandemic hit, services went online. I was ecstatic. Finally, I could attend online services, and it felt like this was a time for me to join, so here I am. Ross Caligari said, "If you don't feel like you belong to the world you inherited, it is because you were born to help create a new one." And that is one of my favorite quotes. I'm always looking for ways to serve and make positive changes wherever I go. I'm a trained death doula and celebrant. I work in the nonprofit sector as an executive director, and I volunteer on a number of boards, probably because I'm a glutton for punishment, but that's what I like to do. And I've just started a study with Avalonian Theological Seminary, because I do feel myself drawn to ministry and helping others. I like singing, drawing, writing, dancing, all things technology, and learning about new things. I look forward to becoming more involved with Calgary Unitarians and serving within the community. Thank you for welcoming me, and let us sing together, "Here We Have Gathered."
Here we have gathered, gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. We all who see
though we are not actually gathered side by side except on the screen, that song has always for me expressed the essence of why we come together. Why we come together in religious community, to be seen and heard in our brokenness and our wholeness, to welcome all voices, to wrestle with the big questions of life, to feel connected across generations, and to share the joys and the challenge of this shared human experience. We are learning more and more, both these days but even before, about the health concerns of isolation and loneliness. Loneliness is recognized now as a health issue, and it's been equated to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day if you have prolonged loneliness. The issues for mental health as well as physical health are significant. And so we are having to reach out in the only ways we can these days. But as you heard Daria say, being virtual has meant that she could more deeply connect. And that is happening. I'm hearing that broadly. While we can attend lectures and classes, clubs and interest groups to satisfy some aspects of that wanting for connection, some intellectual and some physical activities, there is something unique about spiritual community, for it responds to the heart's deep longing for belonging, for that sense of kinship. There is the intention to engage the whole self, mind, body, heart, action, and ethics, and also that essential notion of worship, which for us is not about worshiping something external to ourselves. It is about naming that which is of worth and having that fuel our thought and our action. In these days of social isolation, the importance of this sense of community, this longing for belonging, is heightened. Every week I have inquiries from people who are searching for that sense of belonging. More than before COVID times, actually. People looking for the whole self, mind, body, and spirit connection. That spirit, that elusive part of ourselves that is longing for connection, for delving deeper into the fullness of the human experience. Last week, our guest presenter, Rabbi Lara, spoke and shared statistics about the value of belonging to a religious community. Things like increased generosity and volunteerism, and an overall enhancement of health, and deeper overall satisfaction with life. These are all outcomes. I really encourage you, if you are not here, to watch what she had to say. It is online now. To bring all of this into a context and to give you a chance to engage with it, we will have a responsive reading. And Lara will join me, and I invite those of you who live north of the Bow River to join me in the solid text. Those who live south of the Bow River or are somewhere where you don't know if you're north or south of the Bow River, to join with Lara as we offer our responsive reading. Deep in ourselves resides the religious impulse.
Out of the passions of our clay it rises.
We have religion when we stop deluding ourselves that we are self-sufficient, self-sustaining, or self-derived.
We have religion when we hold some hope beyond the present, some self-respect beyond our failures.
We have religion when our hearts are capable of leaping up at beauty, when our nerves are edged by some dream in the heart.
We have religion when we have an abiding gratitude for all that we have received.
We have religion when we look upon people with all their failings and still find them good. When we look beyond people to the grandeur of nature and to the purpose in our own heart.
We have religion when we have done all that we can, and then in confidence, entrust ourselves to the life that is larger than ourselves.
We have religion, each and every one of us. It is a calling and a longing. I want to share a memory I have. The room was filled with over 300 participants. The instruction, find a partner for the next exercise. I knew no one in the room. Feelings of anxiety mounting. A little afraid, I looked up and out at the mass of people, wishing I could be invisible, hoping this would not be a totally traumatizing experience. You see, this was a weekend of what used to be called encounter sessions. I felt the urge to look to the left, and there across the room I met a pair of eyes that seemed to be matching my own energy. We nodded and made our way to each other through the throngs and had a sense of relief and comfort in each other's presence, like we already knew each other. Why? How do these connections happen? How does that longing for belonging draw us where it does? What a gift it has been to be musing on this longing for belonging. For along with the research and the academic exploration that I always do, there has also been personal reflection, and memories near forgotten have come to mind. Interactions both meaningful and fleeting that serve the function of enhancing the sense of connection and belonging. In his book, Social Intelligence, Daniel Goleman includes the insight that among people around the world, nourishing relationships are the single most universally agreed upon feature of a good life. While the specifics vary from culture to culture, he said, all people everywhere deem warm connections with others to be the core feature of optimal human existence. Indeed, study after study verifies that we are neurologically wired to seek connection and belonging. It is an innate function of our biology. Interesting, isn't it, that the meaning of the word religion derives from the Latin regalar, that which binds. We seek a community such as this to deepen our sense of belonging. In her opening welcome, Jane read our purpose statement, as we do each week. This was affirmed in 2012 and is still so meaningful. And I can recall going through the process and how important relationship and connection were, how central welcome and deepen relationship is the core of our purpose. I remember how the first version only had deepen relationships and needed to somehow include the invitation to broaden and welcome new relationships as well. Our purpose, you see, is all about connection with ourselves, with each other, with the wider world, and with however we sense the divine. Now, this may sound obvious or perhaps even fluffy until we start looking more deeply at what truly connecting could mean. and what impedes its occurrence. I've particularly been inspired over the years by the work of Brené Brown. As a scientist, she shared a mantra that informed her work. If you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. As a social scientist, she chose to explore connection, for as mentioned earlier, we are hardwired for connection. It's why we're here, and it gives our lives meaning. Only measuring connection is messy, near impossible. When asked about connection, most people tell stories of feeling disconnected. Love recognized by broken heart, and bonding by a broken relationship, and belonging by times of exclusion. In the messiness of connecting lies excruciating vulnerability and the courage to be imperfect and to be seen. It sometimes takes courage to seek out, to respond to our longing for belonging, for it requires a certain amount of vulnerability, of being authentic with all of our imperfections, all of our wounding and our brokenness, along with all of the gifts we bring. This capacity for vulnerability and authenticity is at the heart of connection, of a true sense of belonging. It is rooted in our sense of self-worth. In Dr. Brown's work, she concludes that shame, which boils down to a fear of disconnection, is present in each of us. That sense of not being enough, good enough, smart enough, thin enough, the litany of not enough is part of the human psyche, and the counterbalance is worthiness. Those who engage healthy connection have at their core a sense of worth or being loved. This is the greatest message we can impart to our children, to ourselves, and to each other, that we are not perfect, and we are worthy of love and dignity. It is our first principle, as Daria mentioned, affirming the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Sadly, not everyone is fortunate enough to have this instilled in them through their lives. Often those who struggle most struggle for this deep sense of being lovable and of worth. And that is part of our purpose here in a beloved community, to hold up a mirror of acceptance. It is our work to create a safe place to let ourselves be truly seen and accepted, to create opportunities for connection, to be wholehearted people. It's no easy thing, this excruciating vulnerability, the willingness to be seen in all, or at least some of our imperfection and brokenness. It helps if we practice gratitude. I learned this, and that's why I have a daily practice. If we are willing to say, I love you first, if we can resist making the uncertain certain and remain in the messiness, if we can realize that we are enough and that others are enough too, if we are willing to take the risk of connecting authentically, even with the uncertainty inherent in the effort, even in these times when our opportunities for connection might be limited, we need to expand our possible thinking about it. What then? What if we do connect? What if we tap into that essential meaning of human existence? What then? Well, I agree with Rachel Naomi Remen's statement that when we know ourselves to be connected to all others, acting compassionately is simply the natural thing to do. Our sense of connection moves us into action. This connection is beyond the connection with other people. I might actually edit this slightly to say, when we know ourselves to be connected, acting compassionately is simply a natural thing to do. It is our recognition of connection with the interdependent web of existence, our seventh principle, which Sheila talked about, befriending the spider, becoming truly and deeply connected to each other, to ourselves, to beyond ourselves as well. Embracing connection at this level requires us to respond, to be response able. And that brings me back to our purpose. We are here to welcome and deepen relationships, connection, and then to work for a just and sustainable world. Belonging gives us the fuel to do the work of justice. It is a sense of relatedness, belonging, that has us act, and act we must to sustain the connection. I'm reminded of the words from Fred Rogers. Yeah, Mr. Rogers, who spoke of connection and caring thus, and I quote, "When I say it's you I like, I'm talking about that part of you that knows that life is far more than anything you can ever see or hear or touch. That deep part of you that allows you to stand for those things without which humankind cannot survive. Love that conquers hate, peace that rises triumphant over war, and justice that proves more powerful than greed." This is also the essence of the word namaste, that recognition of the light within each person and our choice to relate to that part of each other. Recognizing the light throughout all of existence, and that we can be mirrors to shine it more brightly. The longing for belonging is something we offer one another. It moves us to a place of deep gratitude and also gives us the opportunity to be generous with sharing our light and our love with others. And I'd like to invite Jane to offer another way for us to be generous. Blessed be.
Take a few moments now to appreciate our being together, though at this time only together virtually, yet with recognition that we truly are together and that we are not alone. We need community to remind us of our web of connection, to remind us of our capacity and willingness to give and receive. For it is the contributions of each one of us that creates and sustains community. And so for our offertory, please be as generous as you can. Thank you.
Beautiful. I will now offer our closing words. We Hold Hope Close by Reverend Teresa I. Soto. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like a North Star and to the truth that we are greater together than we are alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know the way to the world of which we dream, and by covenant and the movement forward of one right action and the next, we know that one day we will arrive home. I now invite you to join in singing our closing song, Fire of Commitment.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion leads to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion leads to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion leads to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
As we come to the close of this sacred time together, this time of intentional response to our longing for belonging, I invite you to stay for coffee and conversation, first in small groups, then at 12:15 all together with the board. When you leave this virtual space, your invitation to coffee will appear. Simply click on the coffee cup and you will be virtually transported and randomly assigned to a small group. Please be sure to introduce yourself to everyone, as there will be newcomers and visitors amongst us and those like me who may forget a name. At 12:15, everyone will be gathered back into the main room for a community conversation with board members and each other. As you go, carry the light of the chalice with you, recognition of the divine light within each and every person, your fire of commitment. Take it into your heart, its warmth and the love of this community. Then shed its glow wherever you may be. And now will you join me, please, in singing our closing benediction, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots all